So yesterday's session was understanding about like decision rules, right? Okay, so earlier we already worked on decisional rules, and as part of that we know what is when rule and what is condition expression. Okay, so finally when rule and condition expression can give you either output as true or false only. Instead of this, if I wanted to go for my customized return values, then we have to go for other type of decision rules. So one famous thing is decision table, maybe decision tree, and something like map value. And remaining options like fork or Boolean expression or score model, these are similar to the other things. So these three are the three major rules what we have to understand as part of decision rules. And yesterday we started discussion about decision table, right? So decision table will be looking like a table by the name itself. It is looking like a table. So where when I say table and row and column structure, right? So here you'll see structure as if, else if, else if, else if, and finally otherwise. Okay. And for a first if condition to check, if I wanted to see with four properties, I should see property one, I should add property two, maybe property three, maybe property four. So if all the four property values are satisfied, so finally you'll see something called return option. And here I can return something like hard coded values. Okay, or we can return something like functional values, or we can even return something like property references also. Whereas this option is not available for an when rule. When rule can return only true or false. I cannot customize that. This is one biggest advantage. Okay, now whenever a table is being executed, it will start with its first if condition. If first if condition is satisfied, whatever the return value say 25 percentage, so this will be carried back to its parent rule. This decision table, I can call it from an flow rule. We can call it from another decision table. We can call it from a data transform or an activity or different scenarios, right? So these are like parents in terms of this example. Whenever a table is executed, if the first record is first condition is satisfied, this will be carried back and the below things will not be evaluated. Maybe if first condition is not satisfied, we'll check for the second, maybe third, fourth. So whenever any condition is satisfied, then below things will not be evaluated. That is what first thing you have to do. That is where the structure you are seeing as if, else if, else if. And if you're comparing this statement with something like decision tree, and there you'll see structure as if, and if likewise. And here else if, else if. What is the difference between this structure and this structure? And decision tree will evaluate all the conditions. Consider first if condition. If it is not satisfied, no doubt it will take to the second, then third, then fourth. Maybe if second condition is true, still it will check for the third one. Maybe if third one is also true, it will check for the fourth one. So this tree will be evaluated with all the conditions, but a table will be evaluated only if the condition, till the condition is satisfied. So this is one important difference. And in order to make a condition to be satisfied, say first if condition to be satisfied, I'm checking for the first one, maybe second, third, and fourth, thread, all the properties it has to evaluate, it has to check. Meaning first one and second one and third one and fourth one. So there is by default end operation between all the conditions. Say total I'm having 100 properties. All the 100 things must be with end operation only. In between first one or second one or third one and likewise mixed logic cannot be possible. So this looks like a small drawback, right? Okay. Now let me tell you with one small example, that is if this is my screen. Okay, consider if this is my screen. And here, so if this is my screen, and here there will be like three check boxes. Consider there are three check boxes. So one has like prime, and one has like valid, maybe one has like 1 lakh transaction history. Okay. And additionally, there will be one more drop down called gender. So now what I wanted is, if prime, valid and 1 lakh transaction are like true or satisfied, maybe further of male candidate type, we wanted to give 25% discount immediately. Maybe in this case, maybe a female candidate, still we will be giving 25% discount. And in this case, maybe for male, 20%, and female may be like 18% uncounted. Likewise, 16 probabilities might be there. So don't go for separately creating when rules or data transforms. It might lead to little complication. Instead, if you are creating one decision table, what are you trying to do? So you will be first going for if condition, and here you'll add properties, right? Prime as property one, valid as another property, 1 lakh transaction history, and something like gender as one more thing. So here you'll give values as yes, yes, yes. Okay, and then here you will be giving values as male. Okay, and the return value here you have to give it at 25%. And the second else if, again yes, again yes, again yes. And here you have to give it as female and then still 25 percentage. And in this case, maybe male, maybe female 20 and 18. If we closely observe, our first two conditions not same. First two conditions are like exactly same, right? In that scenario, do we really require writing it as two separate conditions? And then no. So what you can do is, in a decision table, you can add OR logic for this. So this is same, only this alone is differing, right? You can write some OR logic between these two. How to write some OR logic? So for that, okay, let me first log in. So create any decision table. I think yesterday we did not create it. Okay, I'm trying to create one decision table, maybe with the name ABC. Okay, so here I'm trying to add same conditions like prime. And then one more condition, something like valid. Okay, and one more condition, maybe something like transaction, whatever it is. Okay, and one more thing, something as gender rate. Okay, so something as gender. So now what I wanted here, it must be like yes, and wallet also must be as yes, and transaction history also as yes. And here gender can be male or female. So I'm trying to give it as male. And if you wanted to add one OR logic, here you can use this option. Click on this, you'll see something called female. And obviously here you can give only one return value. Don't think that you can type two things, only one can be possible. So now if I'm trying to add one more in below, so this can be like y, and maybe something below. What are you understanding? For the first condition to be satisfied, prime should be yes, and valid should be yes, and transaction must be yes, and gender male or female. Meaning between different properties, end operation only, but within one property, there can be OR operation also. So in this way, we have to achieve our decision table, making one return value common if more than one similar condition. Okay, so this is one option known for very less number of developers. So you are trying to find some OR logic in between. Okay, so likewise, If first condition is true, then 25%. Second, if everything is like not evaluated, it will give return value, something what we define in otherwise. Meaning return value is 200% mandatory, right? And that too, there should be only one return value. There must be only one return value. Suppose maybe here also, if I give the same logic, maybe yes here, again yes here, again yes here, maybe male or female. Now, if I give it as 20%, then since first condition is true, there is no chance of executing the second one, right? But overall, this condition and this condition both are same. So second one will not be evaluated. But why are we giving two similar conditions? So if there is any mistake happening there what we can do is we can go for check conflicts. Okay, we can go for check conflicts. So hardly we're trying to understand maybe 4 or 5 logic. If it is about like 500 records or 1000 records, you'll first export it, meaning one Excel sheet will be downloaded for you. And then you are supposed to fill the data and import it. So don't think like this exporting and importing will be similar to a data table. This is decision table, kada. So when you are working with a database table, suppose say country table. So you can you prepare your own CSV, and you can prepare. So you can prepare your own CSV, and you can just add how many columns you wanted, how many rows you wanted, and finally you can import the data. And in that process, it will check how many records and columns are matching, and mapping will happen, obviously. But now, decision table, you cannot prepare your own CSV. Why? Because here these must be a valid properties now. So whenever I click on export, so what will happen? So this particular tabular structure, what it is currently designed with, is similar as CSV will be downloaded. So try to open this one. So you can see this, right? A similar CSV. So with the properties, with the columns, with this another property, with return values, at those many conditions, everything will be done. And you cannot add one more column however you wanted. Suppose in normal CSV or normal Excel sheet, you can right click and add in column, right? And here below, you can just add one more thing, right? But system will not accept it because this is designed based on a decision table. Whatever the Excel sheet downloaded for you, you cannot modify however you want it. Okay, maybe if I'm trying to add one more thing, it must be valid property. Okay, and this is completely locked. You can see this, right? So you can hardly modify this content only. Okay, so if you wanted to work with one decision table, first try to add how many rows you wanted, and then try to add how many columns you wanted. Then only you have to export it. Then only you have to fill the data there, and then only you have to import the same data. Okay, so this is one thing. Maybe in that process, if there is something duplicated, consider this first row and somewhere 15th row is matching on. I wanted to check by clicking on this button. Whenever you click on this button, every row will be evaluated or will be looped with the remaining pages of that page list. If I can see one tabular form like this, you see a decision table, right? So I can see multiple records in such. No doubt those must be those many pages. So every table layout internally will have one page list. Okay, and everything will be considered as a single page. So now first page will be compared with remaining 99% of other pages. Similarly, second one will be compared with the remaining things, third one will be compared with the remaining things. So in this way, it will try to evaluate, or it will try to check whether there are conflicts or not. If there are conflicts, it will show some with some warning symbol based on which I can delete that. Manual is what you have to evaluate, and manual is what you have to delete it. So this is what the option we have for identifying the conflicts, or we are even understanding how to go for uh, exporting and importing related part. Fine. So now, if my requirement is little complicated, that is based on these three checkboxes. Okay, based on these three checkboxes. If I wanted to just show discount as 25% uncount, what you're trying to do? So you're giving one return value as 25%. Okay, that's fine. Now I wanted to set two other things also as extra. That is discount as 25% and something cash back as 1,000 rupees and door delivery as free. So these three is what I wanted to set based on the combination. Okay, so maybe based on this, I wanted to give 25 percentage cashback as 1,000 rupees and door delivery as free. Maybe in this case, cashback as 800 rupees only and something as chargeable, whatever it is. So if it is about just a one property, we understood it can be defined as a return value. What about like if multiple item? So if you just check here, can you see more than one return value possible? No, right? Can you see more than one return value possible? If I'm trying to click on and if I'm trying to add some extra records, it will not allow. Okay, so here more than one return value cannot be possible. So now how to achieve this task? Someone please guess and tell me.
Map value maybe Chandra.
Map value lo kuda return value can be, and they're also kind of property set only.
Mm.
If you don't know what map value is, right? So with your current knowledge, based on above three properties, if I wanted to set below three properties, what can be the approach? Just guess and tell me what we can do in this case. What we can do. So maybe if you are planning to go for a data transform, just imagine those many when conditions, those many extra property sets is what we have to do, right? Okay, so now we can try this in something easy approach. That is in the decision table itself, there will be something called results tab. If I click on results tab, there will be something called additional allowed results. Now try to expand this. Whatever the return values you made possible, if I click on down arrow, okay, so I have given something like 25 here, 20 here, maybe 15, whatever it is. Maybe if I have saved, system will consider that these 10 are the return values. So now here, if I click on down arrow now, so those 10 will be showing out. I might be selecting one out of that, maybe 25%. And here extra properties is what you have to set. Dot cashback. If this is one property, I have to set something as 1,000. And one more property for the same return value కదా అదేంటి డాట్ ఇంకోటి ఏమనుకున్నాం సో డోర్ డెలివరీ సంథింగ్ యాజ్ ఫ్రీ in this case. Now if return value is something like 20 percentage, then I can set a property value something so and so, maybe a different property, and even I can go for three properties in this case. Likewise, for every return value, extra property set is what we can do. So it's like very, very big advantage. If you don't know this option or if you don't know this feature, every one of you will run behind a data transform. Just imagine how many data transforms, how many when conditions, how many like extra property sets. So you'll make that design much complicated. Instead, if you can use this decision table, you can avoid when conditions. You can avoid data transforms. This is one of the best options available. Okay, fine. Okay, so these are all the important options what we generally have. And let me tell you one more small scenario that is, I have a decision table with something as value or return value, something like 25,000 rupees as the discount. Okay, so maybe for this scenario, 20,000 rupees as the discount. Maybe for this scenario, maybe 15,000 rupees as the discount. As a developer, I created this decision table for my client requirement. So based on so and so, if cart amount greater than 5 lakh, then I'm giving 25,000 rupees as the instant discount. So I have created one decision table in this way and compact. Okay. Now my clients wanted this discount value to be frequently changing out. So they wanted to change the discount value as 26,000 rupees maybe on Mondays, or 27,000 rupees maybe on Wednesdays. So if they wanted to make modifications in this particular table, and if a developer alone is accessing this unconditionally, then it might be like time killing process. So what I'm trying to say here is this particular rule can be delegated. I already told you what delegation is. We already discussed how to delegate that rule also. Okay, fine. So once a rule is delegated, so after you saving this rule, you'll see an option called delegate. So whenever you are delegating this rule, it will ask you for the particular access group. I'll give something like manager access group or users access group. Who all are part of that access group, they can access this decision table. Consider I'm the bank employee now, and this particular rule is delegated for me, where I wanted to change the price this to 26,000. Okay, so if I'm trying to change the value, if I'm saving it, okay, fine. But without my knowledge, I made a mistake. That is, I have given some comma. Okay, so maybe if this decision table is like executing during runtime, and if it is checking for condition number one, and this is the return value, and in the background, I might run some calculation part. So where this being a comma, it might not be working properly. Just an example. So here, real users, what they're complaining back. So they're saying like this condition number one alone discount is not properly being applied. Okay, so this is because of somewhere mathematical format not correct, nothing much. Okay, so what we're trying to do, so a real user, when they're making modifications, it might disturb the existing behavior also, right? It might disturb existing behavior. So that is where we will restrict users not to modify these values. So in interviews, they might ask you how to restrict an hard-coded value, how to restrict an return values. I wanted to restrict it. So for restricting, what we'll do is again we'll go to results tab, and you'll see something called results defined by property. You can see an option, right? Results defined by an property, meaning if I click on dot and if I give any property value, say that property value must have one table type defined. What do you mean by table type? Suppose if I have something like gender uncount, gender equity gender direct gender property, no?
Custom.
Customer page or direct gender is sure. Okay, direct gender property. You know, this property is defined with some table type. So it can be via local list or prompt value or a data page, doesn't matter. So this must have some table type. So if a property value is defined as the result for any decision table, then what happens is, maybe I have to try saving it. No doubt it will throw a lot of errors. Now, if I'm trying to come back here, so if I'm clicking on this one, am I getting any option to modify it? No, right? So I can see male, female only, meaning something is what I can select. Okay, so I have given gender as the value, right? Meaning I should see only these two options. From where are we getting these three? And so if we go to results, I have defined my own results. See, right? Additional allowed results are 25, 20, and something empty. Okay, and even if I give something like male as one option, okay, those are being prompted, right? Suppose if I give male as one option, and if I come back here, okay, so what will happen? I can select only few out of those if I'm selecting male. So in this scenario too, if return value is male, then system will check what extra properties to be set for that result. Okay, so finally, return values are restricted. I cannot give any functional value however I want it. I cannot type or hard code any value. I can select only one out of that. I'm restricting it. So even the real users, if this rule is delegated for them, so they can hardly select one value out of that, but they cannot type anything. So how to restrict values, how to set extra properties, and even how to preset some properties. So here the last you see an option, right? I can able to preset, meaning kind of property remove. So I can able to preset some values. So these are all the options we have in decision table. Okay, fine. Now, one more scenario, what generally we work in real time is, as of now, you can observe the structure is showing as if, else if, else if, else if, right? So now this structure can be changed. So try to observe this. As of now, if, else if, and I can see these many conditions and something like written as one thing showing under actions. Try to observe actions only, then in the written, right? Okay, now if I come to results tab, there is an checkbox called evaluate all the rows. Now, if I mark this, what we are understanding, whenever I mark this in my decision table, all the rows must be evaluated. So why it will execute all the rows? Maybe if it started executing with first one. If it is true, I think below things will not be evaluated, right? What will happen if I mark that checkbox? And during execution, if first condition is true, will it still evaluate all the below rows? Maybe if in that scenario, so if there is something like duplicated uncount, meaning first set of condition, maybe seventh set of conditions if both are same, and return value if it is like different, I think. So if will this be like taken ultimately, or will this first one? So some kind of doubt is what we are getting. So finally, decision table is meant for returning some value, and that too based on evaluating one at a time. Now, in what scenarios I have to mark this? Or first of all, what will happen if I mark this? So if I mark this, you have to observe, because of some errors, I'm not seeing this behavior perfectly. Try to observe if ever I mark this, maybe if I'm trying to save, this last checkbox will be automatically disabled. Okay, if I uncheck this, it must show immediately. If I mark this, it must be disabled. Okay, this is not properly showing now. So you'll see this last one disabled. So what is this last one? Allowed to return values. Meaning, if I mark this, there is no return option no more applicable. Return option applicable under the income. So if I come back, observe all the structure, conditional structures is like changed to when condition. Earlier it was as like if, else if, right? Now structure is changed to when. That is one observation. And the next observation here is, are you still seeing return value? No. No, right? Earlier it was showing like return value. So come back here again, just uncheck this. Again, click here, structure is changed and you can see return option and with some return values also. So what is like necessity of marking this checkbox? And when we'll go for, so when we'll go for this when logic, and what is the point of having without return values? Okay, so if my requirement is about setting out a property. So now in this example, consider this example. So I don't want to carry any return value to my parent row. Okay, so ideally, this requirement has to be done with when conditions only. Okay, so I'll be creating one decision table where I wanted to check for three properties and set three properties, right? So in that scenario, okay, what I'll do is I can add some extra actions part. So ideally adding multiple rows after this, maybe in the right side is not possible if it is like applicable with return value. But if it is like when conditions, I think actions can also be more. Actions and nothing but property set. So here I can set a property something as discount. And I can set a property something as cashback. Okay, and I can set something as door delivery. Okay, door delivery. So what is happening? Maybe let me remove this part also for deleting it. So if these three as yes, let me give discount as 25%, cashback as 1,000 rupees, and door delivery as free. And maybe in this case, maybe yes, yes, no, uncoordinate. So we wanted to give discount as 20%. We wanted to give cashback as 800 rupees. Okay, and something as door delivery as partial, meaning 10% is what he has to pay, 90% is what Amazon is paying. ఇలా అనుకోండి. What is happening? So it is checking for all the when conditions. First when condition, if it is true or false, no doubt it will check for the second one. And maybe at the last, there might be something repeated conditions as well. Maybe yes, yes, and here also as yes. And in this case, so maybe like 20%, maybe something like 700 and something like free and content. What will happen? So it will first try to check this condition number one, and in clipboard it has to set these three properties. When you're tracing it, you can identify. So discount property and cashback and door delivery values will be set with this. And since you are like evaluating all the rows, it has to check for condition two also. Even first one is true, still it has to check for condition two. So this condition two will be failed, condition 3, 4, 5, and this condition might be true now. And in this scenario, it will try to override the property values. So if I wanted to check for properties and set fixed number of properties, then I can go for evaluating all the rows. Just understand those many when rules are bypassed now. Okay, need not create those many when rules, need not create those many data transforms also. So very important advantage marking this checkbox. This will mark only if I wanted to set a property where returning it cannot be possible. So are you seeing any return option now? So earlier it was returning something to its parent, but now there is nothing to return. So without giving some return value to the parent, how parent will know whether child is completed or not? So generally, when you're working with synchronous behavior, so I have an activity with few steps. I have a child activity. Now maybe at the 10th step, I'm trying to call activity number 2. So in that scenario, if I call this activity step 1, 2, 3, 4, and because of this call, child activity should be completely run. Parent is waiting. So once child is completed, parent remaining steps will be continued, right? How parent will know whether child is done or not? So anytime when we are working with synchronous behavior, child rule should give one return value. So return value will be either true or false by default. So if it is true, aithe parent will know child is successfully completed. If it is false, aithe parent will know child is completed with some warnings. Whatever it is written ante child is done. That is what you have to know. Now with my decision table, I observed return values can be something customized also. Maybe if I'm calling this decision table from an activity, I have a method called property map decision table. I'll talk about this. So whenever a decision table called from an activity, step 1, 2, 3, 4, no doubt here decision table must be evaluated. Once this is completely done, then remaining steps of parent should run, right? Meaning parent is waiting for the child. So parent should know whether child is completed or not. So if I'm returning something, then that is okay. And this return value I can map to a property, and further I can go for some mathematical calculations. That is fine. Now if this decision table is meant for evaluating all the rows where there is no return value, then how parent will know whether child is completed or not? So if there is no customized return values to be sent, parent will send the boring return values as true or false again. Getting my point? Ultimately, a rule, maybe in this example, a decision table should guarantee send one return value. So if it is about like if else if structure, I think my own return value will be sent back. Or if it is like evaluating all the roles, or if it is like when condition, so again true or false will be set. And in between, I'm trying to set my own properties. This is what you have to know. So got it right? Every one of you, so far clear?
Yes, Chandra.
Okay. So now consider some combination example. That is, this as screen 2. Consider screen 2. And the next screen is screen number 3, where it is to be like meant for routing. Now my requirement is, if in this case we wanted to route this to a person called Ravi, and I wanted to set extra discount as so and so, cashback as so and so, door delivery as so and so. And in this case, something like Rahul should be working on the next screen with some extra properties. No doubt what we're trying to do, based on this decision making, I wanted to implement routing part as well as property set. So for property set alone, either we can go for when conditions, that is enough. But here it is meant for something like a routing. When I say routing, it must be called on to its assignment shape only. Am I correct? So, after you selecting some assignment shape, after you double clicking on assignment shape, you'll see an option of current operator, specific user, work cube, custom and business logic, right? So here customized, meaning conditional based. Is it like every time a single person? No. Sometimes Ravi, sometimes Rahul, sometimes so and so. It is about like conditional based kabatti. No doubt I have to go for some conditional rule, maybe a table or tree. Maybe in this case, if I'm going for a decision table, then no doubt this value must be considered as a written value. Okay, so decision table must be evaluated. One written value is like valid operator ID, and that is where routing will further proceed. So now in this example, based on some set of conditions, I wanted to give written value as well as property set. So in that scenario, you cannot go for evaluating all the rows. Instead, you'll come back here and you will try to get everything like else if, based on which this is our return value, something like Ravi is the name what you have to provide, and extra properties is what you're doing. So initially, when you're going for if else, you did not see these three columns to be added up. So if you change that to evaluating all the rows, then if you can add some extra columns, then if you can change this back to evaluating, then return option will be possible as well as extra properties, it is also possible. All these are like very useful and kind of hidden options for many developers. Many developer doesn't know how to use a decision table properly. They don't know how to use a decision table more clearly. So they'll every time think about data transforms only, or maybe when rules only, or decision tables. Okay, so they'll not go for decision table. They'll go for more of data transforms or activities. But just imagine how many hidden options is what we're having out. Okay, and all these are advantages, right? And the problem with this is, so consider if return value is something like Ravi. Now I'm trying to set properties to the Rahul some properties. Now if it is about different number of properties, for Ravi aithe, or maybe in this case, I wanted to set these three properties. Maybe in this case, I wanted to set four different properties, completely different properties. Then maintaining in one tabular structure is very difficult. Maintaining in one tabular structure is very difficult. So there what we have to do is, okay, there what we have to do is, I don't want to maintain this column or property set here. Instead, I can able to go for this option. If it is written value, maybe three properties, different written value, five different properties, different written value, 10 different properties. So in this way, we can able to go for written value based property setting. Don't every time go for returning and property setting from here itself. If it is about same and fixed number of properties everywhere, suppose first condition 3 yes I wanted to set these three properties. Maybe if this is like yes, yes, no, then I wanted to set four other properties. So what about these three properties? This will be still applicable here, right? How you'll bypass here? Adding maybe four extra columns, which might be even applicable for first scenario, which might not be properly done in tabular structure, right? In that scenario, we'll try to stop setting out properties here and we'll go for this option. Okay. Now, if the same problem arises in terms of conditional checking out, then how to eradicate it? What do you mean by conditional checking? So for everyone clearly understanding, right? Cheppandi ఒకసారి.
Yes, Chandra.
Okay, what about others? Follow Nara.
Yes, Chandra.
Fine. So now my example here is, so if customer is prime, then I wanted to give him 25% instant discount. That's, I don't want to check anything further. Okay. Maybe if customer is not prime, then I wanted to check for the wallet. So if wallet is applicable, I wanted to give him, maybe if prime wallet 1 lakh history. So if this is yes, then I wanted to give 25%. I don't want to bother anything about these two things. And maybe if this is no, then only I have to check whether he's having wallet or not. If he's having wallet, then here whatever the value it might be, I wanted to give him 24% discount. And maybe in this case, maybe if this is like satisfied 23 percentage, and if this is not satisfied 22 percentage, maybe in this case, something whatever it is. So if you observe, condition number 1 requires only one property to be checked, no dependency on other two. Condition 2 requires only two properties, no dependence on the third one. Maybe in this case, maybe if all the three are wrong, then I wanted to check for gender also. Only in this case, I wanted to check for gender. If it is male, something like this. If it is female, something like this. So if I'm trying to maintain everything in one tabular structure, so properties, whatever you use now, it will be applicable for every condition which may or may not be required. For the first condition, I require only one thing, how to bypass all other three. It's like kind of roundabout process. And for the second one, I require only two things. So no doubt I have to do something to bypass, right? For the third condition, I require only three. I have to bypass something. For fourth condition, I require something all the four. Just for the sake of one condition, maybe a fourth property if it is required, it is even affecting the remaining things also. Consider for the fifth one, I wanted to check something like CIBIL score also. So I have to add one more column, how to manage for the remaining things. So if you are evaluating multiple conditions, maybe with a decision table, every condition should be applicable with same number of properties. That is what we are observing. But if my requirement is about like different conditions with a different number of properties, I think decision table is not entertained. Getting my point? Decision table is not encouraged. So decision table by the name itself, it is of tree and column structure. Sorry, a row and column structure. So every condition here should have same and fixed number of properties. Every condition should have same and fixed number of properties. Condition 2 also should have same properties. Condition 3 also same properties. Maybe if my requirement is about condition 1 key, only one property is enough. Condition 2, maybe 4 different. Condition 3, 10 different. Then we have to go for something called a decision tree. So I'll talk about what decision tree is in tomorrow's class. As of today, decision table is what you're trying to understand. So advantages of decision table you can observe. So it can be changed to when structure or if structure. And your understanding something like results based on the return values, okay, or restrict something. So additional allowed results is what you're seeing. Presetting properties is what you're seeing, okay, and the return value can be hard coded or functional or property reference. All these are advantages. And the major drawback here is every condition should have same and fixed properties, which is not required every time, which is not required. Okay, fine. So we'll try to understand what decision tree also. It will not take much time. But before this, let us understand how to reference a decision table. Meaning from what are all the places I have to call one decision table. So the very well-known thing is you can call it from an flow rule using decision shape, right? Using decision shape, you can call it. Inka, you can call an decision table from an activity also. Just now we came to know, right? From an activity we can call. So how to call it in an activity? Inside activity we have a method that is property map decision table. This is one method we have. So I created one decision table, and inside decision table, so there might be structure as if, else if, or when conditional related కదా. So if it is about else if అయితే no doubt return value must be there. So return value may be hard coded, whatever it is, it will check for first condition. If this is satisfied, this return value must be mapped to so and so property. That is where if I use this method below, I have to pass two things. It will ask me what is the decision table name, and it will ask me what is the property name. So if I give ABC as the decision table name, and if I give property as dot discount, I have to create a property as dot discount. This return value will be mapped to this one. Getting my point? So setting out a property based on a decision table, right? So property map decision table is the valid method. Fine. Now, if I'm creating one, a decision table with some when rules or evaluating all the rows, there will not be any return value. In that scenario, return value will be either true or false. That's it. Antega. So in that scenario, if I'm still going for decision property map decision table, I'll call ABC, but property value might not be provided. So that is the reason property here is not mandatory. So if I open any activity, okay, so take any activity, whatever it is, open this, and if I'm trying to add a method, something as property map decision table, and you have to pass few parameters. One has decision table name, one has property name. Property name is not mandatory. So even if you pass it or not, system will properly work in the next steps. Okay. So you can call it from an activity, that is one thing. And you can call even from a data transfer. You can call it from an when rule. You can call it from another decision table. So you can call it from declare expression. You can call it from declare constraint. Okay. And you can call it from again decision tree. So you can call an decision table from these many places also. Okay. These many places, out of which everywhere it is of same way using a function. We have a function called px evaluate decision table. This is one function available. So meaning wherever I can use this functional library, I can use a function in data transform, right? I can use functions in when tables everywhere. Wherever you can use functions, no doubt you can call a table using this. And again, if we talk about activity, in activity can't use a function. Obviously, yes, right? So in activity, I can call a table using two ways, that is using a function or using a method. And in every other place where our functional library is applicable, I can use this. And you can call this inside a tree also, that is with different approach. So tomorrow's class, I'll explain you what decision tree and how it's like differences between these two.
Chandra, we have one function called obtain value, right? That we won't use.
Even that, so obtain values to directly call a rule. So px evaluate decision table, this is also a function. So generally based on, okay, when we work with validations, we worked on validations, right? So there we validated something like first name. Okay, my requirement here is first name should not have special symbols. What we have done for that? We used a function. What is the function? What is the function? Px contains a special character. Am I correct?
Yes.
Did you remember this function?
Yes.
So if I'm searching for this function, I got this function name showing it as 2 or 3 in number. So you'll see a function showing it as duplicated. It's not actually duplicated. So for this particular function, I have to pass some parameters where I have to just pass property name. That's it. Okay. And for this same similar function, I have to pass parameters as property name and based on some when condition. Getting my point, right? So based on this when rule, only this validation will happen. And this function, without any condition, it is straight away validating this property. So what I'm trying to say here is there will be similar functions, but inside parameters, what you have to pass will be changed. So obtain value might be something where inside parameters might be different based on decision table with some when rule. And here straight away calling one decision table. Got my point?
Yes.
Okay, so tomorrow we'll talk about what decision tree is, and then we'll try to understand differences and advantages and disadvantages. And then we'll work on few examples. There will come to know in practical things as well. Okay, clear, right? Any questions, any doubts, anyone? Okay.
No,
Okay.